going on, everybody? Welcome into the Thursday afternoon edition of NBA Live here at FTNDaily.com. My name is Zach Graham, aka Kawaisenberg DFS, ready to walk through tonight's 5-game main slate in the association. Excited for this one. We've got, again, I know we've been in April DFS for a while now, but this one, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Of course, we're talking motivation here tonight. We're talking extensive injury reports for nearly every team on this slate. I think this is going to be a fun one. And I do appreciate having every once in a while, right, one of these slates that goes from 7 p.m. Eastern and takes us all the way until bedtime around midnight. We've got just one game going off at lock at 7, then another one half an hour later. Then we're going all the way to 9 p.m. for the third lock of this slate, and then 2 games at 10. So let's go ahead. A couple minutes late getting started here. Wanted to get the ranks in there, some ownership updated. So let's just go ahead and jump in here. That one game that does go off at lock a little under 2 hours from now is the Bulls and the Pistons. Bulls are 11-point road favorites here, 220 implied total. Pulling up the 4:30 injury report, you can see what we've got here for the favorites in the Bulls. You've got no Ayo Dosunmu, no Andre Drummond, and Alex Caruso, who was listed probable. He is available to play here tonight. So taking a look at how the field is treating the Bulls as of now. Again, we will have ownership updates leading up to lock. So these will change, and I think these numbers might creep up even higher than we already see them. 38% on DeMar DeRozan, 30 to Kobe White, 26 to Nikola Vucevic, and Alex Caruso himself pulling 16. Then you see some of these other value options. Javonte Green, you should expect him to remain in the starting lineup here tonight in place of Dosunmu. And then you'll see Torrey Craig, Dallin Terry, and I think Adama Sanogo probably going to pick up a few spot minutes in relief of Nikola Vucevic in this spot. But they don't have to go there. You could run small with the guys that they have available. Javon Carter will get in there for some minutes as well. But in terms of my DFS interest tonight, I'm good on the Torrey Craigs and Dallin Terrys and Javon Carters. And I'm not a guy that goes in heavy on these Bulls all that often, at least this season over the last few months. But I think tonight, 6,500 for Kobe White. I know he has been nowhere near the fantasy asset that we saw over the first half of the season of late. But with no Dosunmu in there, the minutes should be there. There's a little bit of extra usage to go around here, and no high usage guys. Sorry, just getting some messages here. No high usage guys stepping into this rotation in place of Dosunmu or Drummond. So Kobe White 6,500 is my favorite option here. He's gone 38 or more minutes in 5 of his last 6 games. Again, the production profile is not what it was in the first half of the season, but the price is not what it was either. This is a guy that we were considering in the upper 7s. Sometimes he crested 8K on DraftKings, so now 6,500. This is the cheapest we have seen Kobe White on DraftKings since, and I'm scrolling, November 28th. So again, I think he is my favorite option here, but Vucevic going up against this Detroit front court, Jalen Duren, Chimezie Metu, James Wiseman, should not be scared off of Vooch here at all. 7,500, like him. I think it's kind of in reverse order of price for me here. It would be Kobe White, then Vooch, then DeMar DeRozan at 8,100. So if I'm going up above 8K tonight, I think I want to really, in my 20 max, invest in those guys that do have a lot to play for tonight. And there are plenty of options, 8K and above, of players, stud players who are in those type of scenarios tonight. That said, I'm going to have a non-zero amount of DeMar DeRozan. I just think unless something drastically changes, I will be under this number that is nearing 40% on our last update of ownership. So Alex Caruso, just a secondary option for me. I'm mostly sticking with those top 3 Bulls here tonight. And then we flip to the Detroit side of things. Of course, they still have a lengthy injury report here. Guys that are out for the year: Fontecchio, Grimes, Beef Stew, Oscar Thompson, Stanley Amude, and then Tosan Awoma down with the G League on a 2-way, which makes no sense because Motor City is done. Game 2 of the G League finals are tonight. Detroit is not in it. So I'm a little bit confused there on why he is not with the big league team. Maybe he ran up against some sort of two-way date threshold, but I don't think so. I think that's 50 games, and we have not seen Tosan appear in 50 games this season. So the main thing on this injury report is Cade Cunningham questionable once again with that knee issue. I just have him out in my first run of ranks. I have no reason to believe that they would run the most valuable asset that this team has out there in a meaningless game after they already have, but they've been pulling back on the reins on Cade over the last week or so. So I have him out right now. Obviously, we're not projecting him out until he actually gets ruled out from questionable, but 6% to Cade. You see almost 20% to Chimezie Metu, and I think the field has that spot on right now. If Cade does sit, and again, I expect that, then you can certainly get to some Jaden Ivey. Marcus Sasser, you would assume, will get the start at 4,900 once again, point and shooting guard eligible. Pulling up what we had against Philly, 2-3 days ago, when we had no Cade Cunningham, you had Marcus Sasser play 27 minutes, 22.3% usage. Jaden Ivey was the guy you wanted if you were picking up somebody in that backcourt in the starting group. Jaden Ivey, almost 32 minutes, 34% usage, just below 40 DK points in that one. So again, just doing a little bit of game log watching there, but more paying attention to the rotations, the minutes here. Neither guy was affected by foul trouble in that one. So I would be Ivey over Sasser in that scenario. We've got some other cheap guards that we can get to, so I don't think Sasser is a priority. And again, looking at that usage, not just from this game, but over the last few weeks with games with Cade out, it has been Ivey as the one you want compared to Sasser. And again, this is another team that even if Cade takes a seat, 4,500 for Malachi Flynn, I think I'm good there. That ownership will come up on him, on Troy Brown, on Ivey, on Sasser when we do, I assume, get Cade ruled out here. In terms of the wings, just filler value. Troy Brown Jr. should continue to start here. He's got a real floor on him, and it's a floor that is shallow enough, low enough that I'm just going to pass on Troy Brown as things stand right now. If you get a couple of these other guys out, right, if all of a sudden we are also missing an Evan Fournier and maybe a Jared Rhoden or something like that, then I'll take a second look. But the rest of this team, pretty uninteresting to me. I don't really have much interest in Jalen Duren either at 6,700, but still in play. Like, I would imagine that I get a non-zero amount of Duren in 20 lineups, but I'd be shocked if I organically got more than one or two. So moving on to the next game here, the Knicks and the Celtics. And of course, the Celtics have been playing with zero motivation outside of staying healthy and just kind of, staying in form for a number of weeks here. But on the other side, the Knicks have a lot to play for here. They are currently favored to end up as the 3 seed on the playoff probabilities on Basketball Reference, but they can end up anywhere from the 2 to the 6. They are guaranteed to avoid that play-in, so good on you, New York. But everything to play for here for the Knicks. So if we start on this Knicks side, again, these main guys are getting massive minutes. You see 27% to Jalen Brunson. It's a tough matchup, but I do think we are going to be without the questionable guys on the Boston side. We'll take a look over there. So I think it'll be Drew Holiday taking a seat here tonight, Kristaps Porzingis taking a seat here tonight. But we'll get that news. Brunson at that number, I'm absolutely fine to get there. I think I have a slight preference to get to some of these guys in Kings and Pelicans over Brunson, but Brunson is, if those guys are 1A, Brunson is a 1B in terms of guard spend-ups tonight when you're looking at guys like De'Aaron Fox, CJ McCollum as the spend-ups in that one, which is the game of the night in terms of actual stakes for the postseason and seeding. But then on the wings here, $7K for Josh Hart, $6,900 for Dante DiVincenzo. I slightly prefer Dante here, but again, both of those guys are playing massive minutes. The story has not changed here in the way that Tibbs is operating down the stretch, down the last 6 weeks or so of this season. You got DiVincenzo playing 37.5 against the Bulls on Tuesday. Jalen Brunson played 42 and a half. Josh Hart played 46 minutes. And then OG Anunoby played 35. So we are back to full minutes for OG, 5,400 here. I think he is a little bit underrepresented in terms of our ownership projections right now across the industry. If OG can play 35, 36 minutes here at a $5,400 price tag, 4.5% is a little bit too low. So I do have my eyes on all of those guys. Isaiah Hartenstein is certainly a usable piece at 5,500 center only. You've got Mitch Robinson 4,100, and I think it was notable. Precious Achiuwa was out of this rotation last game as Mitchell Robinson came up just short of 20 minutes. But those minutes are creeping upwards. So the fact that Mitch could maybe crack the 20-minute mark here tonight, it just has me. Maybe souring is a little bit strong of a term when I'm approaching Isaiah Hartenstein tonight, but far from a priority. And again, I prefer those other four guys, Brunson, Hart, DiVincenzo, and an Anunoby before I get to an Isaiah Hartenstein share. If you're running 150, you want to throw some $3,400 Bojan, 2, 3, 4 shares of that into 150. Be my guest. It is a very unexciting value play compared to some of the ones we have coming up. On this Boston side, again, there is not much to say right now while we have these Q tags still looming. We've got Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and Jason Tatum available, but still Q tags on Drew Holiday, on Kristaps Porzingis, on Xavier Tillman, and O'Shea Brissett. So again, I do think we get this news before 7 p.m. lock, so we'll be keeping our ear to the ground, trying to figure out. We'll take a second look in the Discord a little later on. If all of these guys are in, again, they have zero motivation to overexert themselves here in this matchup, which is why it's a little bit surprising to me, to be honest, that the Celtics are favored here. 1.5 point home favorites, 217.5 implied total. And you see nobody picking up more than 2% ownership from this team. So if everybody's in, what I'm doing is I'm just going to max one that's starting 5, and what I get is what I get. I don't think I'm going to get a ton organically, but again, in 20 max, if these ownerships are anywhere near accurate, and FTN model's pretty darn accurate, you see what the PGA model did this morning for the Masters, you can play one share of any of these starters in a 20 max and be over the field. So again, the starting 5 is going to be in my player pool. Not Xing any of those guys out, but I don't expect to get a ton. And then if we do get some of these questionable guys listed out, again, we'll revisit. We may look a little bit stronger at Jason Tatum, at Jaylen Brown, at Derek White, because we know those guys are available here. And then, of course, that could open up if you get Tillman out, you get O'Shea Brissett out in addition to those starters, right? Then maybe we're taking a look at a Luke Cornett 4K in a 150 build, right? Peyton Pritchard 5K if he pulls a start. Sam Hauser 4,900 if he pulls a start. Even then, it's a matchup against the Knicks. It's going to be hard. It's hard for me to see a scenario where any of these guys are getting up to like 9s or 10s in the ranks, if that makes sense. As we go here, everybody, I see a number of you tuned in. I know it's a slow day on the MLB side of things. So if you've got any questions, do not hesitate to stop me, tag me in the chat, and we can discuss things further. But I'll keep moving for now into the 9 p.m. game, the Rockets and the Jazz. Rockets 11-point road favorites here. Slate high 227 implied total. And this is where we are getting an absolute ton of ownership from this Utah side. And I think Houston, well, we can get to them second. I think Houston in their own right has some very interesting tournament options here too. But we'll start with the Jazz and checking out the Utah injury report here. No Clarkson, no Collins, no Dunn, no Kessler, no Markkanen, no Sexton. So we're not short on bodies here for the Jazz, but it's their prices that make them extremely strong plays. And you can see Talon Horton-Tucker, Luka Samanic, our April NBA DFS darlings back in our lives once again. Huge ownership. I believe these are the two highest projected owned players on the slate. And I think for good reason, especially Samanic, 3,600 in that starting role last time out against Denver. We got just shy of 35 minutes from Samanic. So look, again, Samanic is not a good NBA player, but we're not concerned about that here tonight. Can he rack up fantasy points for us at a sub 4K price tag? Absolutely. And so I am in on this chalk. Talon Horton-Tucker was off the bench last time out, but he still got just shy of 32.5 minutes. I'm a little like between those two if I have to choose. Talon Horton-Tucker to me, and you can see it in the player projections, Talon Horton-Tucker has a higher fantasy ceiling than Luka Samanic, but I think he's also the more volatile fantasy asset tonight when it comes to when it comes to the minutes floor, because there are plenty of bodies here. And you may not have heard of all these gentlemen, but of course, Keontae George, the rookie, Taylor Hendricks, the lottery pick from last year. Those guys will start here. Johnny Juzang, the draft pick from 2 years ago out of UCLA. Omer Yurtseven, our summer league buddy. And then Luka Samanic, the Spurs washout, Spurs and Knicks technically. But then you've got Darius Bazley off the bench. You've got Jason Preston, Clippers washout. You've got Bryce Sensabaugh, the rookie. And I believe this team also has guys like Micah Potter, Kira Lewis Jr., Ken Lofton. All of these guys, I believe, are available for the Jazz tonight. So, again, we just have to kind of, I think, pick our spots here because those last three guys I mentioned, we don't have them projected for any minutes. And I think that is correct. What we saw last game, this 9-man rotation, I think is what we see here again. But guys like THT, again, just know there is risk, especially at this ownership. So if you want to come in under on any of these guys, and I think we can include a nearly 40% owned Omer Yurtseven in this conversation as well, because I love playing Omer Yurtseven just as much as the next guy. But going up against this Rockets team that is really not running a true center, I think he could struggle for minutes as well. So I'm still trying to work through just exactly how many Jazz I'm going to allow into my lineups tonight in the optimizer. But I think you're probably going to want to min one at least of these guys, again, because of the prices. You've got a 6K tag on Keontae George. Nobody else that's active for this team tonight is priced higher than 4,800 on DraftKings. So, and again, it's not the worst matchup in the world. It's not a positive one against Houston, but we're at home. We're in this. We've got the home court advantage there, the elevation in Salt Lake City. And again, you had 7 of these guys play 22 minutes or more last game. So Darius Bazley is a guy that I'm looking at kind of these guys that are sub 20% projected on 3,600. We know about the upside that he has from a fantasy perspective from his days in Oklahoma City. He's also, got 25 minutes last game. So I think the field, again, is spot on with the ownership here. But I think there's ways to get different, whether you're running a single entry, whether you're running 20 max like I am, or you're going the full 150 in the main or in the mini max. I think there are ways to get different here because, you look at a guy like Taylor Hendricks, sub 6%. That's a little interesting to me. Juzang, guard forward eligible at 4K. This is a guy who can get extremely hot from the field. He was right around 32 minutes last game. It did not shoot well. Usage was down, but 15%, I think that is a very interesting tournament play. So again, you can check out the ranks. A number of these guys have 10s right now, and I don't think that is going to change drastically leading up to lock here. So again, if you got any questions, don't hesitate to stop me in the chat, but we'll move on to the Houston side of things here where, of course, the same names are out here for Houston. They won't return. They are playing for nothing, but interestingly enough, Ime Udoka has these boys still out there playing like they're playing for that last playing spot. Tari Eason, Alperen Şengün, Jayshawn Tate, and Steven Adams remain out. Amin Thompson is available back from that finger issue, and Amin Thompson is pulling the most projected ownership from this team. Point and small forward eligible, 33%, 6,400 on DraftKings. He is my favorite of this starting group. Followed closely by Jalen Green. Jalen Green went through that, 6 or 7 game stretch where it looked like all of a sudden, holy cow, this guy's going to be an all-star in the future. And, I think that, again, as we said at the time, it's a little bit of fool's gold there. But what you can't deny is that Udoka, until further notice, is kind of having these guys play out the string here against Orlando the other night. Again, in a game where they had 0 to play for. 37.5 minutes out of Amon Thompson, 40.5 out of Jabari Smith, 33.5 out of Jalen Green, 33 out of Dylan Brooks, 38 out of Fred VanVleet. These guys are playing massive minutes. They're 11-point favorites here on the road against a Utah, for all intents and purposes, Utah's G League team here. So you see 24% or more percent projected ownership to Thompson, Green, VanVleet, and Jabari Smith. 10% to Dylan Brooks. I think he is a fine tournament pivot at that 4K range, away from some of those higher owned values on the other side of this game. A little bit of concern with Cam Whitmore. I didn't have eyes on Orlando and Houston for the entire game. We were on the playback stream the other night, but Cam Whitmore, 6 minutes in that game. I know he picked up some fouls in that first half, but little bit worried there. I'm not sure what was going on. 4,300 guard forward eligible. I would still include him in a player pool if you're running 20 to 150 lineups in these large field tournaments tonight, and just fringe 150 shouts for Landale and Jeff Green. So we can keep moving on to these 10 p.m. games. Again, this is the game of the night from a real hoop standpoint. Pelicans and Kings. Kings are 1-point home favorites here with a 215 implied total. There you go. Shout out Cody in the chat. One of our Houston contingent here at FTN says Cam was ejected, got a second technical foul last game, so that's why he was limited to 6 minutes. And we can see in that game log, in his first rotation, he didn't pick up 2 fouls there, so it was a very short rotation. I imagine there was a tech in there, since Cody said it was 2 techs. Was it consecutive, Cody? Like, was it in that third quarter rotation? I imagine it is here, looking at 1:46 to go in the third. Bang, bang, and you're gone. 2 fouls there in the stint play-by-play. So I see Cody typing. Again, Cam Whitmore, like I said, is somebody I would include in my build. But again, he and Dylan Brooks separated by 100 there. Just not going to look as Joe Ingles. Okay. Jingles got to him. It was fun. We've seen Joe Ingles go up against Dante Exum in the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, Jock Landale, his teammates down under there. So, again, Pels and Kings. We'll start with the home team here. Again, Kings are favored by 1. Of course, Sacramento still without Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk here. You've got a Q tag on Keegan Murray. He was present at shoot-around, so a very important questionable tag there. Again, I would lean that he plays here tonight in this very important game. The player rater has De'Aaron Fox, 9,200, 21% owned, as the number 1 player in the player rater. And I'm not sure I disagree with it. Again, if you're looking for a spend up tonight in terms of a guy who has everything to play for, all the motivation in the world, Fox and Sabonis are 2 of the best answers you can come up with here tonight. Again, the stakes for this game. The Kings currently have the highest chance, 53%, to finish in the 8 seed, but they've got a 14% chance of slipping down to the 9. They've got a 27% chance of jumping up to the 7 and hosting that varsity game in the play-in next week. And they still have a slight 1.5% chance to get out of the play-in and get all the way up to the 6. Currently sitting in the 8 seed, the Pelicans are in the 6, and these teams are separated by 2 games with 3 games remaining. So Pelicans, overwhelming favorites to be in the 6, 67%. So looking to, again, win tonight, get even closer to locking up a spot in the first round. They've got a 30% chance to be the 7, and they've still got a minuscule chance to be the 8 or the 9 here. So again, both teams extremely motivated. For the Kings, I talked about those 2 spend-ups. I have no issue getting to nearly any amount of Sabonis or De'Aaron Fox here. Keegan Murray is a very strong minutes play. You know, we got him 37.5 minutes right now in our projections. So it's 6,100. Fine to run some Keegan Murray. Trey Lyles is pretty much where I cut off my interest. Keon Ellis will be in my player pool. I think it's going to be tough at 4,800 at a guard spot tonight to really get too much Keon Ellis organically. And then just 150 shouts for me on Davion Mitchell, on Harrison Barnes. Those guys present floors that I don't really want to invest. I do not want to invest in here tonight. On the Pelican side, we've got no Larry Nance here now with a personal issue, so he will join Brendan Ingram on the sidelines, or I should say just absent tonight. Imagine he's not with the team if he's missing for a personal reason. And then we've got a Q tag on Najee Marshall, who has missed, I believe, the last 2 games. So you see 17% ownership coming into Zion, 15 to Trey Murphy, 14 to CJ McCollum. I think that's a little low. We're going to get big minutes out of the main contributors on both of these teams. So Zion, my favorite right now, then CJ, then Trey Murphy, if I was prioritizing those top 3 guys in terms of price. And then I think it's an interesting conversation to have on Jonas Valanciunas here tonight with no Larry Nance. To me, Najee Marshall plays a big role in Jonas Valanciunas' minutes upside here tonight, because if Najee is in, you can push Zion to the 5. You can roll Najee at the 4 and go a little bit smaller against this Kings team. But if you're missing Najee Marshall and you're missing Larry Nance, now, of course, you can still run small and put Zion at the 5, and we will see some of that. But I think the minutes floor comes up a little bit on Jonas Valanciunas if we are also missing Najee Marshall, because outside of Zion as the backup 5, then your other names are Cody Zeller, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, not exactly guys you want in a game that you're treating as a must-win here. So if we do see Najee Marshall out, Jonas Valanciunas is somebody I think we should have some interest in, especially in these large field tournaments, because at 5,200, we know he doesn't need much more than 18, 19, 20 minutes to get on top of that price tag. So if he's getting into that 22, 23 range, that's obviously somebody you want to have interest in on this slate. MME shouts for sure on Herb Jones, Dyson Daniels, and then Jose Alvarado if you're running 150, 4,100. I think I'm good on that in my 20 max. The last game that we will go through here on today's stream, Blazers and Warriors. Warriors are 13-point road favorites, 221.5 implied total. Let's start with the Blazers, who have a very important Q tag on Delano Banton. Apparently got that, turned his ankle. Not sure if that was in the last game against the Pels or not. He closed in that one, played 31.5 minutes. So that's another important piece of news. The other same names that have been out for weeks now: Brogdon, Kamara, Grant, Sharp, Simons, Tybal, Time Lord. All of these guys missing tonight. So you see DeAndre Ayton, Scoot Henderson up top, both at 25%. Those guys, to me, fantastic plays. Chauncey Billups is going to continue to run these guys for big minutes. You saw 40.5 minutes out of Scoot against the Pels the other night. You saw 36 minutes out of DeAndre Ayton. So these guys I'm loading up on. Absolutely love these guys. And then Delano Banton, if he is able to give it a go, 7K, very interested in getting some shares of Delano Banton in tournaments. As long as you play Delano Banton's, let's say you're setting up for a single entry, right? If you want to get exposure to the backcourt here, these the better fantasy performing guards in this team in Scoot and Delano Banton, put Delano Banton in a point guard or a utility spot, and if he's out, you can swap right down to Scoot Henderson, 6,900. Scoot also has the safer minutes floor here, so again, that's why you see him pulling double the ownership. But if Banton is in, I would want to get to some shares of him as well. And then Ryan Rupert, 4K. I know he is not good, and that is an understatement in terms of his fantasy production, his fantasy efficiency, but he and Chris Murray continue to play big minutes here. You got 37 out of Murray, 33 out of Rupert the other night, sub 10%. Those guys are interesting as value options. And then Jabari Walker, 6,300. We saw him get pulled, did not close last time out against the Pelicans, kept him to 28 minutes. If we're getting sub 30-minute runouts here from Jabari Walker, I got really no interest at 6,300, but I do still consider his minutes upside to be in the upper 30s. We've seen him crest over 40 at times in the last couple weeks. So Jabari Walker is also somebody that should be in your player pool. And then if you're missing Delano Banton by the time this game rolls around, Justin Minaya in for some more minutes here. And then Ashton Hagans probably picks up some minutes in that backcourt as well. Hagans would probably benefit more from a minutes standpoint in terms of his game over game change than somebody like Justin Minaya. For the Warriors, we've got no Draymond Green. We've got no Klay Thompson. We've got a Q tag on both, or on Gary Payton II. Dario Saric is now listed probable. So taking a look at this team, sub 10% to everybody, I think I'm going to be over on some of these guys. And I think we probably see those ownerships rise as we get closer to lock here tonight in about an hour and a half. 56% chance that the Warriors end up as the 9 seed and host the Lakers. In all likelihood, the Lakers 65% chance to be the 10. But the Warriors do have a 13% chance of being the 8 seed and a 1% chance to get all the way up to the 7. They've also got a 30% chance to drop down to the 10 and be on the road for that JV game in the West play-in. So again, the Warriors have everything to play for here tonight as well. I think they're clearly not super worried about this game, but the guys who are remaining with Draymond and Clay out, I think we should have more interest in than the field is exhibiting right now. Steph Curry, 8% at 9K. I think he should be in the mix up there with De'Aaron Fox, with Jalen Brunson, with CJ McCollum. Andrew Wiggins, mid-range secondary option at best. Chris Paul is going to look a little bit better, but again, point guard only spot. There are so many point guards or single, that single position eligibility with the point guards on this slate tonight. Even with the absences that we do have, it's tough to get to him. Brandon Podziemski at 5,100, I think makes a little bit more sense from a roster construction standpoint here tonight. With Clay out, I would imagine he gets back into this starting group here. And with no Draymond, Trace Jackson Davis, 5,700. I would rather get to a guy like TJD over somebody like Isaiah Hartenstein on this slate. So that'll do it for the game-by-game breakdown here today. Again, I'll be in the chat throughout this slate, so don't hesitate to tag me if you've got any questions. We'll get updates to the ranks, ownership, player projections, and the like. And be looking out for this news before we get out of here. We did get some news pertinent to tonight's games. Xavier Tillman is in. Drew Holiday is in. Kristaps Porzingis is in. So that's all of the Celtics in. And like we talked about near the top of the stream, to me, it's put those 5 starters into your player pool in MME, max 1, and just let it ride. Again, I don't think we're going to get a ton of those guys organically here, but the field is not really getting there either, so you'll have some ownership leverage if you do get to any of those Celtics. Cade Cunningham was also ruled out as expected, so don't need any updates to the ranks there. We already had him out, and then we're getting more Friday news for the massive slate coming tomorrow on the penultimate day of the season. No games on Saturday. So again, I will retire to the Discord. I appreciate everybody tuning in, whether you caught me live or on the replay. And I'll be back tomorrow breaking down the massive Friday slate. Until then, good luck tonight, everybody. And as always,
let's get these beans.